today's jargon term is ABC data, or data, however you choose to say it. And it's funny because I don't think we've ever done this specific jargon before, because usually what we talk about is the three-term contingency. But it occurred to me, and somebody said, but sometimes people don't say, oh, well, we're doing this and it's the three-term contingency. They say, let's take some ABC data on it. And then, you know, if you're a parent, you're like, what? What are we doing? I don't really know what that means. So it is talking about the three-term contingency, and it's just keeping track of it. So let's take a look at what our actual definition, which today it came from behaviorist.com. ABC data is the antecedent behavior consequence. ABC data model is a strategy used to change student behaviors. Interesting. It's used to identify behavior triggers, behavioral actions, and consequences of behavior in order to change problem behaviors. I don't hate this definition. Can I tell you? I don't hate it. If I don't understand what this is, it's still going to be hard. But once I begin to understand, this is a pretty accessible definition. But let's take a look at the watered down version where I added jargon in. And I did it for a very specific reason, because we talk about the three-term contingency all the time. ABC data, keeping track of behaviors by looking at what happened right before the behavior. That's the antecedent. What the behavior was, which the experts will call it the topography of the behavior, and what happened as a result of the behavior, which is the consequence. So it's the ABC, antecedent, behavior, consequence. The goal is to see patterns and why the behavior is happening, which the behaviorists call the function of the behavior. Okay, so anybody can take ABC data. You can start taking ABC data today. And let me tell you, it's one of the first things that usually I say to a parent before they start ABA therapy, before they do anything, so that they begin to understand behavior. Because usually when I'm talking to a parent who hasn't started therapies yet, they're going to be on a waiting list and it's going to take a little while. And I talk to them about your child is doing things because there's a reason. It's not random. I know a lot of people come in and go, no, they're doing random stuff. And, I used to think that too. And then wonderful behaviorists said to me, no, behavior is not random, especially if it's repeated. There is a reason for it. And we have a right, we have a responsibility, and our children have a right for us to fight to try to understand what the reason is. And here's the good news. If you understand what the reason is, then you have some choices of how to morph the behavior into something that isn't challenging, but that the person still gets the need met. That's what ABC data is all about. So I often do this on the show where I'll just take out a piece of paper and I fold it into threes. Now I did this on cardstock so that I could use it again multiple times, because I always have to, do this. And I'm often doing it on ragged sheets of paper. But I used to walk around and have one of these in my pocket. Like, we would go to the park and I would have one of these in my pocket. Now, you can do this on your phone. They have apps. And for those of you who are technologically inclined, you can do that way. I'm sometimes very low tech, and this worked for me because I could have this in my pocket. And it reminded me, because it was in my pocket, that this was an important thing that I was doing for me as a parent, for my child to understand what he wanted, and to give to the experts so that they could discern patterns of what was happening. So I've got my three columns here, right? A is for the antecedent, which, remember, that's what happens before. Something happens, and then we get a behavior. And then after the behavior, we get a consequence. That's the three-term contingency. And I know I used to say, well, I don't think that's true of everything. And then play with it a little bit. Ask yourself, okay, what did I just do? I just did something, a behavior. What was the antecedent and what was the consequence? And you'll go, we're all walking around doing these little behavior chains all day, right? And so is your kid or your teen or your adult on the autism spectrum. And knowing what these three things are is going to lead you to understand a lot of different things. So I would carry this around in my pocket, and when something would happen, I would immediately focus on the behavior and try to be like a court reporter going, okay, what's he doing right now? He's swiping things, he's yelling, he's throwing things, right? And I would start to think of it that way. I would ask myself, do I need to do anything to keep him or the people around him safe? But what am I going to write down when I get back to my paper? I was not writing on the paper while the behavior was happening, but I was remembering it like a court reporter because I knew I was going to write it down there. And that was key during the behavior. Then afterwards, when the behavior is over, I become a detective and I think back, and this is imperfect, but it still is good and effective to think back, okay, what happened right before the behavior? Did I ask him to put his shoes on? Did I take away a toy from him? Did I put a demand on him that wasn't the shoes? Did somebody walk by with something that he wanted? Was there a loud noise? Something happened. And I love whenever I'm talking to a parent, I remember when I had this mental shift, something happens at school and the teacher says to you, oh, well, today Rebecca did this. And the very first question that you want to ask is, what happened right before? And a lot of times the teacher will be like, well, I don't know, but she hit somebody. Yeah, but what happened before? Because that's key, right? Something happened, then there was the behavior, and we want to say what really describe the behavior, or they call it the topography of the behavior. What did it look like? What were they doing? How long did it last? All of those things. And then you want to write down what was the consequence? What happened afterwards? Did they take a nap? Did you give them a cookie? Did we get lots of hugs and cuddle time? A lot of times people get very paranoid about this and go, oh, somebody's going to tell me I didn't give the right consequence. Don't stress about that. How about if we just say we're going to take the data and see if the data will help us? And then once you've done one set of behavior, you draw a line and then you add more, right? I used to have this in my pocket and write in it all the time. I will challenge all of you to do this for one day. That if something comes up, and you won't do it in the moment, but you'll do it, you can do it later on, but it's best to do it as quick after as possible because your memory is going to be the freshest, right? But write the stuff down and see what patterns are there. And I started to notice, oh, we are having behavior every day at 2 o'clock, regardless of what we're doing. What are we eating at noon that's causing a problem at 2? It isn't just about behavior, right? Sometimes it's that the trigger is something in the environment. And we found that there were food allergies. It could be that one of the times it was that we were having a tantrum at the exact same place in the exact same store every time, and we found out that it was the floor tile. The floor tile went from being smooth to a grid, and he thought he was going to fall through the grid. We could deal with it then once we knew what it was. ABC data is a powerful tool. You can use it, you can see patterns, but even better, if you take ABC data and you give it to the person who is the BCBA on your team, they can discern even more patterns from it. It really is the first step to a whole lot of sanity. And it's something that's respectful because it takes into consideration what was it that they wanted. It doesn't say, oh, this is, they're just behaving badly. What was it that they wanted? What was it they needed? Can we give it to them in a way that isn't harmful to them? I love ABC data. I'm not a big data person. I don't like to take data. I like to be in the moment. This really super helpful. Hi, Huma. So great that you're here. Oh, Mike, I'm so glad that you're doing it with her now and with him. That's amazing. Good on you. And Kay says, I always have a pocket notebook ready to with the definition of ABC for reference in case behavior happens. And it's so helpful. It is. And can I tell you one more thing, and then we're going to get to our guests, that's really helpful about it, is that before I had ABC data, when my son would start to engage in behavior, I would start to freak out. Because in my head, I would be like, oh no, he's doing it. I'm not going to know what to do. Oh, the people are all looking at us. They all think I'm a bad parent. They think he's a monster. I'm sure I'm not doing it right. What if this is the rest of our lives? Boom, ba-doom, ba-doom. And then, I'm a mess and in tears, thinking about, is this the rest of our lives? Whereas when I could think like a court reporter and go, okay, what is he doing? Oh, that's interesting. He's throwing things. Do I need to worry about that right now? No, we're in a safe place. He can throw things. It helped me to manage and go, that's just behavior. That doesn't change him, me, anything else. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, that's behavior and we know what to do about behavior. And there's something that he wants right now. What is it that he wants right now? Which is a much happier space to be in as a parent than thinking, oh no, is it never going to get better? What are people thinking of me in my parenting? Which I think is none of my business. But it gives you a job to do while the behavior is happening that's productive so that your brain doesn't go swirly, whirly, giggy into other places where it should not go. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook.